Hey folks, this is Rob Wells here with you from the law office of Robert M. Wells. Our office helps out landlords and property managers deal with their landlord-tenant situations and problems. In this video, we're going to talk about whether or not what type of criminal activity may qualify as terminating a tenancy for just cause under the Tenants Protection Act of 2019. Before I begin though, landlords, property managers, if you're dealing with a situation where your tenant or the household is engaged in criminal activity and you need assistance dealing with that situation, please feel free to reach out to us below. Now let's begin. Now, to answer this question about whether or not criminal activity qualifies as just cause, the answer is absolutely yes. This is stated in the Tenants Protection Act at Civil Code Section 1946.2, subdivision B1F, and it pretty much covers criminal activity by the tenant on residential real property, including any common areas or any criminal activity or criminal threat as defined under Section 422 of the Penal Code, which is, I think it used to be called terroristic threats. It's basically criminal threats like that can be directed at either the owner or their intermediate family members. I don't have the Penal Code section off the top of my head, but those are that kind of types of threats that are covered. And it's defined on or off about residential property and directed at any owner or the agent of the owner of residential real property. So pretty much any misdemeanor or felony violation that the tenant's engaging in, such as the ones that you think about most commonly are like drug activity. If a tenant or occupant in a unit is assaulting other occupants or engaged in activity against other tenants, residents, or the surrounding community, for example, there are special enhancements, or just they're not enhancements, but they're defined in the Code of Civil Procedure as public nuisances outright, such as if your tenant is engaged in cockfighting, dogfighting. There's a matrix of firearms violations, such as unlawfully housing what the state calls assault weapons. That's not my terminology. It's the terminology in the Penal Code. So if you have an unlawful assault weapon, such as AR-15s with the crazy features on them, that if you violate the Penal Code and you're manufacturing those items, those could qualify as a public nuisance, which you can terminate a tenancy for just cause. Also, pretty much anything that deals with a firearm against people, such as unlawfully brandishing a firearm, against, like a resident or a tenant that engages in that type of activity, or even harm someone with a firearm, is going to qualify as just cause under this section here. The mechanics of actually evicting a tenant would probably be just giving them a 3-day notice to quit under Code of Civil Procedure Section 1161, subdivision 4. That's kind of my rule of thumb when I terminate a tenancy for criminal activity. It has to be some type of activity that poses a public health or safety issue, such as if you're pointing a gun at someone unjustifiably, you're assaulting other occupants, that type of deal, you're done. I'm gonna terminate your tenancy for just cause under for criminal activity under Code of Civil Procedure Section 1161, subdivision 4, and cite Civil Code 1946.2, subdivision B1F as well too. I did a video about nuisance a couple of days ago, and I outlined I only use 3-day notices to quit for really severe types of behavior. This would be one set of behaviors, that I just mentioned. I would use a 3-day notice to quit to get a tenant outside, get a tenant evicted, because I can't have a tenant threatening other people or persons within like an apartment complex or a neighborhood, that type of deal. Your less serious violations, you know, that are curable, such as like noise and stuff like that, wouldn't fall in this criminal activity section. At those, we would use like a curable 3-day notice to perform. And if you're subject to the Tenants Protection Act, you're going to have to do 2 notices, a warning note, 3-day notice saying, hey, clean this stuff up, or else we're going to issue a 3-day notice to quit. These, again, are for severe behavior problems that pose a public health or safety issue. I will say this, that some of these facts may be highly factual specific. Before you terminate a tenancy for this type of cause, you might want to talk with legal counsel about, you know, does this amount to just cause? Because if you end up on the wrong end of making that decision, you issue a 3-day notice to quit and go to court, and your tenant contests the case, and we find out like, hey, it's kind of, you know, the facts are somewhat suspect, then your case could get thrown out, and there could be other consequences towards that. So it might be good to just talk with someone about that, you know, type of tenancy before you do it, to see if you have everything. Also, too, I'll throw in a bonus section here. You also have to consider your evidence that you're going to have before the court. With a lot of these criminal activity types of cases, you could get other residents or witnesses that are intimidated by the tenant, and that also has to factor in to your analysis for your eviction as well, because you could have good facts, but if your only evidence is firsthand witness testimony and those witnesses are scared to come to court, you could have a problem going to court, even though you could subpoena that person to come in, you know, and testify. Kind of, you know, in this situation, a landlord is kind of faced, you know, just like a district attorney bringing a criminal case. Hey, if my witnesses go away and I don't have any other evidence, then I'm going to have a problem. So this is why you want to talk with legal counsel on some type of these types of cases here, because witness intimidation and people being scared going to court because of retaliation, those are real issues for landlords. So again, if you're facing this type of situation where you may have criminal activity going around, and you know you need to like deal with this because you're getting complaints, or even the police or someone is coming up to you saying, hey, you know, you're gonna have a problem if you don't solve this issue, please feel free to reach out to us below, or reach out to competent legal counsel. Okay, until the next video, we'll talk to you then. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.